one thing that I think we're dealing with though is the mentality of it, because remember back in the day, we as black people are seen as less than. So we're still dealing with the descendants of people who have that mentality.
Do you think black men in the UK are disadvantaged? Why? Combating inequality involves individuals and communities having equal opportunities to make the most of their lives and talents. To achieve equity, we must take into account systemic and structural factors that perpetuate inequalities.
If the rest of the world isn't properly educated as to what really happened and why everybody is where they are, like for instance, the effects of slavery, not a lot of white people know the weight behind it. You know what I mean? They know probably the glamorized version of it, but if they knew the impacts and the ramifications that it still had to this day, maybe you could appeal to the conscience and, you know, the wider conscience of the majority, and things can get changed that way. But because the truths are all kept together, nobody knows the real impacts of what's really happened and how it's affected everybody.
Welcome to Barbershop Stories, a series of conversations about the lives of black men as they make their mark in the world, challenge the age-old narratives that society has placed on them, and pave the way for the astute and accomplished young black men and boys who follow. Come join the conversation.
Okay, greetings again, lads.
Yes, bros.
Yes. Today's talk is going to be on inequality. And the main thing is, do we think that black males are particularly disadvantaged in the UK, and why? Just to kick us off, in particular, my own thoughts are, it starts realistically for us anyway, as black men in school, so in academic life. Me individually, I can't remember a time when I felt, you know, inspired in school or had any kind of role models in terms of teachers or people who pushed me on. Probably the same way I'm thinking that maybe white or Asian males may have. So I'm thinking to start with, it kind of is when we're younger and we don't kind of have that kind of input, and you can call it systemic racism or, you know, inequality as you want. But for me, that's kind of where it starts. So I don't know what your kind of thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think for me, sorry to cut you. I think for me, I just realized as a youth coming up, there was no real infrastructure or, you know, pattern to follow. Kind of what you're saying, there's no reference point to follow as you're growing up. So you're kind of just winging it as you go along. So there was nothing in place to say, yeah, this is the path that you're going to follow and this is the result, this is the outcome that you're going to get. We kind of left to kind of freestyle it out a little bit, almost. So I don't know, but I just don't know, because it definitely is there, but then when you get to a certain point in life, I don't know if you can use it as an excuse as well, though. But initially, coming up, there definitely is disadvantages or, you know, things where it's not the same as it is for others, kind of thing.
Yeah, just to chime in, I mean, as what Peter says, it's, you don't know how long you can necessarily use certain things as an excuse. Because I mean, things are down to your motivation, but your own personal motivation. But in regards to the system, I would say we're at a disadvantage, mainly because I'd say the lack of representation. So where there's going to be lack of representation, there's going to be lack of relatability. So things are not really going to be designed for us because they haven't been kind of designed by us. So that's where we're at a disadvantage anyway.
Yeah, and for me as well, I think one thing kind of leads to another, like we say, from school, and then are we kind of disadvantaged in the workplace? And I know in particular, I think the stats been done that black men are more likely to for example, like serve more jail time than say like white counterparts. So is the criminal justice system, is that an unequal, or is that kind of weighted against black men? I mean, the stats say that it does, but again, like as you were saying, Dan, when does the kind of excuses stop and people say, okay, what has been, but now we have to kind of change it a little bit and kind of make our own path? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all the stereotypes that we have about how we are in society as people anyway, it's like, and I don't want to say it as an excuse, but it's easy to conform to the stereotypes and the narrative that's been given to us. So when we get things like high number of black people in the prison system and the rest, it's kind of like something that it's pre-designed for them anyway, if you get what I mean. For this system, I don't know how I'm saying it, but if you kind of get what I'm saying, it's like there's nothing positive for us to follow, so we follow the narrative that's been given to us. I'm not sure if I'm going left with it.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Just by default, and it's just a default thing.
Yeah. So it kind of puts us, like, for instance, in schools, there are naughty kids in schools of all different races, but predominantly it's like the black and probably Asian, but the more predominantly black kids are automatically going to be put in certain boxes. Whereas from my experience, you see, say, white kids are kind of treated without that bias and that stereotype that we naturally have. So in class, it's like we're disadvantaged because of how the teacher already perceives us before they've even taught us. I don't know if I went left with that, but
I'm fully on point with that.
So it's saying that they've almost got like an image or a feeling of what you'd be like.
Yeah.
Before you've even, step foot in a classroom or step foot in a workplace.
Like the black kids, or in the workplace or whatever, not especially in the workplace, if they say a collective of, say, black people, would be deemed as, is something aggressive going on there, or the unruly bunch, or just something like that. It's the same in schools as well. You don't necessarily see that with groups of other people.
I feel like, just going back way when you mentioned about school, I just feel like a lot of things need to be normalized in school about showing other backgrounds, how our culture is and how our heritage is as well. Just even it's October soon, Black History Month. Like, it's always a fight. Some schools do it, some schools don't. It should be normalized that for a period of time or throughout the whole year, you're learning about different cultures. Like, other ethnic backgrounds always get highlighted when they're having their special, traditional occasions or whatever. But for some reason, when it comes to African culture or Caribbean culture, there's always a thin line. Some should be or it's like it's made to feel like it's a big deal or it's isolated rather than it just being embraced by everybody, kind of thing.
So it highlights. Sorry.
Nah, so it should be just. I feel like it should be just normalized. So it's just normal. It's not a thing where it's almost like a secret or taboo type thing to talk about, kind of thing. Like, it's weird sometimes. Like, even now, my kids go to school, and it's not touched on in a normal way. But you see other celebrations. It's in the school newsletter. It's in here. So it just almost seems like, I think it's a secret, or you know what I mean? I don't know.
Now, it's true, when October comes around, it shows you how tokenistic Black History Month is. You get what I mean? Because people's cultures should be, like what you said, should be in the curriculum as standard. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be a thing. And at the end of Black History Month, we're going to forget about it because the very last day is Halloween. So what happened to Black History Month? You know what I mean? Everybody's dressed like witches the next day. Black History Month done. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
Yeah, I think as well, the lack of, obviously, understanding of our culture leads to the bias that other cultures have. Because whether it's, it's their fault or not, if they're uneducated on, Black culture, how Black people are, and the positive aspects, rather than always like emphasizing on the negative aspects of Black culture, then I think maybe the way that black kids, black men in jobs, black people going through the court system, they may be treated differently if people are just more educated in a way and just have a better understanding of what kind of people we are, or what kind of things that we can bring in a positive aspect, rather than always, as you're saying earlier, like black people in a group are always seen as aggressive. But why can't black people in a group be seen as, like business people, or, people out there doing something positive, or, making the most of themselves? It's always
But
like,
you know what though? Sorry to cut you. It is out there though, It's just that it's not highlighted like that though. I know a lot of people that are not ignorant, or not ignorant in the sense of, following gang culture or violent behavior. But those things are just not highlighted enough, or these people ain't seen as much as they should be. That's the unfortunate thing. That's what we need to try and change, and highlight this, make the light shine on these areas over the negative, because that's always gonna have the biggest influence. When you're showing other aspects, it may sway the mindset and change the way of thinking for people from our background and people outside of it as well, to embrace it more, encourage things more as well.
It's true. We need to face the realization that we as a people need to do exactly what you said. We need to emphasize it, and we need to shine light on it, as opposed to, people's always talking about the negative things that happen in the community and the rest. So that's where the focus lies, as opposed to picking up the people who are doing positive things and who are trying to push the culture and whatever not. Because in this society, it's easy to turn around and say, what is black culture? Just simply because of what the media and the mainstream is going to show you, and everybody's kind of, mimicking what they think black culture is. How do we then differentiate ourselves from that if people think that that's what we are? We are not, our culture is not what the media says black culture is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for instance, black people walk around, or non-black people walk around and say, oh, wagwan, and do all of these firm stuff and all of these stuff that would be considered black culture. But then we don't walk around and do what they do. So really and truly, what is our culture if everybody else is doing what they think black culture is? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, man. It's a lot. It's a hard fight. It's gonna take it's hard. It's horrible to say that it's gonna take a long time, but things should have been in place from ages ago. But it's gonna take a long time for it to be normalized, and there needs to be a big push behind it on all aspects, not just from our point of view, from an older generation, like I said, from school, from an older generation, from our generation as current. All different aspects, it just needs to be plugged and promoted all over the place. But
the system in general.
What it's gonna take to do that, I don't know, because it's gonna probably take for us to have to communicate with people that have a different agenda or have a different narrative or what they want to put out there in society as well.
Yeah,
That's the fight.
I got a question for both of you. Really, we've all got kids and stuff. Do you think when they grow up, they'll still be dealing with these same issues, or do you think it'd be a lot better? Because I'm just thinking back to obviously when I was growing up and the issues like my dad had. I mean, I could say there was a lot harder. I mean, you can't really judge how, what harder is, I guess. But I'm just thinking when my son grows up, I'm thinking, will he still be dealing with these kind of issues and perceptions about him, and things when he goes through his first job and stuff like that?
Yeah. I feel like it will always. I feel like there'll always be something there, but not just with our race, with every race. But I do feel like it would definitely get better, because we're getting better as well. We're bringing it to the table. We're highlighting it as well. I feel like just trailing back, like when our grandparents came over here, Windrush era, they were the ones that just kind of set up shop, hardworking. I don't know from our parents' era, it was just about working hard, being able to pay the bills. And I don't know from our generation, definitely the youngers, there's more of a rebellious where we want to do for self and build our own infrastructures. And we're seeing through, I don't know, the matrix, so to speak, seeing through the rubbish and the noise and filtering out. And we say we want to live and it's more attainable as well to achieve, to flourish than it was back in the day, probably our grandparents and parents era. So I do feel like it will be a lot easier because you'll be able to do for self a lot more. You don't have to rely on the machine as such. So I do think it would be a positive in the future for the young ones. Most definitely, I believe so. Anyway,
to chime in on that is what Pete said. Because the youth today, our children are seeing us trying, like what Pete said, trying to do better and actually being better. They do have that, so that will kind of become nature to them. But at the same time, like what he said, the machine still needs to change because the machine's still been present from when our parents were young. So like what you said, Marvin, it's probably not the same level of hardship, but the hardships or the suppression or oppression still exist, and it always will exist as long as there isn't change up top. Because the people who are calling the shots, they're all most likely middle-aged old white men, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they will always be in that position because they're always going to be employing their own to come and take their spots. So there just needs to be diversity at the top.
I think that's in a nutshell, that's what systemic racism is, isn't it, really? When people say, racism, this and that, for me anyway, racism isn't, name calling or, chucking bananas. I mean, that's ignorance, but real racism is obviously oppressing people, stopping people getting jobs, stopping people getting good healthcare, as we mentioned, holding people back so their generations and their people can't actually live a decent life. And
we as Black people we can't do that. We're not in positions to be able to do that to people. Yeah. We can be prejudiced, and everybody's got their prejudice, but what you just said, we don't have that systematic or that political power to do those things. But that's why there needs to be more ethnic people up the top, so those things kind of, less likely to happen.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, getting positions of power, isn't it? We need.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Like more MPs, more politicians, more, people in high places, people in the police force, people where it matters. You know what I mean? That's the only way that we can make change. Voting, MPs, or all of that prime minister stuff.
Yeah. But then that's the thing though, that's the next thing that we gotta take advantage of though. So when these opportunities do come, I notice it a lot with our own though sometimes. We do moan about certain things ain't there, but then when the opportunity presents itself, we make don't know, it's weird, it's a conditioning also, we make an excuse as to why. We're still not happy. Like for example, if someone was to say there's an opportunity to be in the police, I don't know, a lot of us ain't going for that, bro.
Stigma, that's
but
what
even
if
it was to change our kids' future, like if someone like us, like our age group was to be police now and become sergeant or commissioner or in the future, who's gonna really take up that hat though? That's really, it's all good saying someone, a Black person, but you want someone that's in tune with the community though. You don't want someone that's just you don't want a person that's really been spoon-fed or hasn't got a connection with the community. You want someone that's got a connection with everybody, that can walk through the areas and have respect. But I don't see anybody of that nature wanting to do that though. That's what would need to happen though.
That's a double-edged sword. You're actually right. It's a double-edged sword, but then we wouldn't take up them hats because stereotypically we know, the stigma and the stereotypes of we know how the police force is. So why do we then want to go and join that? But then we have to get in at that level to make the change. We don't really rate MPs and the politicians, but we have to get in at that level to make the change. You know what I mean? Just like, is it Pauline Hamilton? Is it the one that the Black MP? So she's where she is because she, where she's from. She's from, you know what I mean? But she has to get into those places to make the change that would then trickle down. So we have to kind of take the flak, you know what I mean, carry the cross as such. We have to do that in certain places where we can. We have to work with other statutory organizations and other people out there just so that we can make the change. Because if we don't, then we're going to be here saying the same thing in a couple of years' time.
I think it would only take one or two people, and then obviously, like you said, more and more people will start feeling more comfortable joining these kind of institutions and feeling comfortable with, like, being a police officer or an MP or, you know, someone working in the Crown Courts or something like that, because you don't see people there. I understand what you're saying, Peter, because you don't see your own kind there. You kind of don't want to be the first one.
Yeah,
You don't want
that's
to
what
be,
it is.
you don't want to be seen to be, you know, not a sellout. That's probably the wrong word, but
It's the right word, bro. It's the right word. But that's what we're gonna get faced with. We're gonna get called a sellout, this, that, snitch, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? It's exactly that. So sorry to cut in, but it needs to be made cool. Do you know what I mean? Trying to do the right thing by us needs to be made cool. And then anytime you speak positive, it's not cool. Do you know what I mean? It's not cool.
I just feel like we need to, what also hold us back as well, that we don't want to, like I said, in terms of the opportunities though, like for us to be, like, I don't know if I speak for the older generation, but some of us are just happy just to get in the door, and we don't want to push further. But sometimes, although just happy to be with. If the opportunity to become more and you're gonna go uni, and that some of us think, oh, it's got that mindset that it's a bit long, or they're not confident, or sometimes probably the inequality from their youth as well, where they didn't have the opportunity or they wasn't educated properly to the point where now in adolescence they don't feel confident enough to even pursue it further. But I do feel like there is opportunity there, because there's things in place where it can't be as racist as it was back in the day, because there's things in place that they have to tick boxes, basically. They have to kind of tick boxes. So, but I just feel like when the opportunity is there, it's kind of intimidated to take on anyway for some people. Whereas they could have been that change for the next generation, or that positive reference, or that confidence boost that we needed to see. Like, I want to get to her position, but in that way, take on the opportunity.
So sorry to cut you, but in that way though, do you think people who have that kind of lack of opportunity, do you think they're getting enough support?
Yeah, glad you said that.
Because
sorry.
Because the way I see it, obviously, for example, you can get a job, say in the NHS or on a low paid scale, but to get further, you know, up the corporate ladder, I mean, I've seen it in my own job. Like, you need people to support you and say, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to, you know, put on your applications. This is what you need to do in your interviews for promotion. Now, 100%, that's what white males and even white females have. Do we have that kind of support network? I don't really know if we do. That's my thinking anyway.
In the system, it's a lot of the time it's not just does your face fit, it's who you know and who you're friends with. So like if you don't have friends in high places, you're most likely not liable to get the opportunities. Do you get what I mean? And it's equal opportunities, but if somebody's friend is sitting high up on the board and they go to apply for the job, or their relative or someone that they know goes for the job, what do you think is going to happen?
They're going to win in it.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
But yeah, man, it is a challenging one.
In regards to the opportunities as well, there are a lot of opportunities out there, but then are they signposted rightly for us? Because a lot of people, when they're told about opportunities, they're like, really, I didn't know that was available. But then people who are not Black, I'm sure that they signposted a lot easier. It seems like things are hidden, or if there's help or funds available, you're not readily told about them.
Yeah, I've seen that, to be fair. I think a lot of things now, I think in this country now, we're doing a lot with like positive action and stuff like that, that's trying to get like things put out there more so like the younger generation and Black people applying for jobs can see what's available. Because I'm probably speaking for myself, when I was looking for jobs and work and stuff, I couldn't really think of what, I mean, I was just looking online and bits and pieces, but I didn't really know what was out there. And if I would have had some kind of support network, say if you did this, then it can lead to that. or you trained in this, or you went to uni, or done this and that, then that would have helped me massively. So you kind of, like you said there, you're kind of blind to a lot of opportunities and probably things you don't even think about, like work with a good job and good pay that you kind of ignore because you just don't know it's available.
No, it's there and it's true. That is very true. Like I was talking to a white person a few weeks ago. He was at some festival and I was chatting. He was talking about what he had something to do with the Wi-Fi or the internet there at the festival, to do with the tills and stuff like that. And we was talking. And I was asking him how you get into what you got into, and he was just like, he was working in McDonald's, and he was just like, got to a certain point, he was in his 20s, and he was thinking, what am I doing with my life? But luckily, his dad had a friend that was in IT, had his own business or something like that, and he took him under his wing. 4 years later, he's now the manager and he's got a company car. And I was like, wow, look at that. So then I thought about it 4 years ago, well, imagine what I could have been doing 4 years ago if I had these references around me and stuff like that. So it's about creating that as well, and just having a network and knowing what's available as well. Maybe if I knew that person, I could have been in on that as well, but you just don't know who's doing it. The only thing that we're doing is kind of ignorant stuff on a high scale, ignorant stuff or stuff that kind of anybody can do or everybody seem to do anyway, as a stereotype.
Yeah, I get that still. And them are the situations, the positions that we need to be able to put our kids or our friends' kids in. Like if we are doing the right thing, setting up businesses or strategically positioning ourselves the same way other races do. You know what I mean? To be able to employ or to signpost, or do you know what I mean? For our own. So them are the things that we really need to try and do.
Uplift each other and collaborate.
I think it's like generational help, isn't it?
Most definitely. Because I mean, sorry to cut you, like when we were in school, a lot of my Asian friends, they'd say, they don't really need to really do this school thing because they know when they leave here, they're set, they got businesses, their dad, their uncles, or what, they've got places to go to, do you know what I mean? And we have to, that's why a lot of the ones I know used to dust around in school because they know when they're coming out of school, they're jumping into cars, they're doing that, you know what I mean? So we need to set the bar.
Even little things, even little things like you mentioned, like the Asian community. I know Asian families that, for example, will all chip in to like buy one house.
Yeah.
So the one person's not in debt.
Yep.
I mean, we could talk forever about how Black people don't help each other, even Black families. How many Black families do we know that would pool all their money together to buy a house, no matter where it is in Birmingham or Wolverhampton or wherever? Not many would do that. Like that's a hard thing to say, but a lot of Black families wouldn't even help each other. Their own blood relation wouldn't trust each other. Whereas the Asian community has been doing that for the last 50, 60 years. And look at the businesses they own now. Look at all the houses they own. I'm sure the white community do the same thing as well, but probably they use more like banks and debt management and stuff like that. But that's just an example of people working together, like just to help each other on the property ladder without having like a £200,000 like mortgage or something.
Yeah, for some reason we're stuck in this individualism, this self, we got to do for self, and it just kind of this crab in the barrel mentality that exists within the Black community and the rest. So no one doesn't necessarily want to see, for some reason we don't want to see the next person get ahead of us, whereas if we work together we can get ahead together, do you know what I mean? But we're stuck in this I've got to, I don't know if it's because we are predominantly coming out of hardship, which has made us, I don't even know where exactly it comes from, but I'm sure it's historical, but we have this individualism that other races that don't seem to have. And that's why we one of the reasons, I guess, why we're here.
I just think as well, in terms of the culture as well, in terms of our culture, there's loads of spin-offs, like, it's not one thing. There's like some are Rasta, some going to other things, some are Christian, some are not religious, some, you know what I mean? So there's not one unity thing. That's what makes us divide even more. In comparison to, I don't know the Asian community, but the white community here in the UK, we're small. So if we divide, and we're going to become even smaller.
Yeah.
So that's why it needs to be one unit, one order kind of thing. But when it gets to that, nobody feels confident in that one person. We've always got some card on that one person why we don't listen to them, or we want to do it. Like you said, the individualism, we want to do it on our own, or we want to be the first person to do it, or when money gets mentioned, we could thinking, oh, someone's gonna thief, or there's not that trust or that that cohesion, which is a shame still.
Then a lot of that actually comes from, and I hate to be the one that always goes back to the historical of it or whatever, not because as soon as you go down that road, people's like, oh, you're always singing that card, but there's an element of privilege as well that we don't have. Do you know what I mean? And that's just standard. We all know about it, so I don't need to keep singing it, but
yeah,
we don't have that privilege, and then we're coming from oppression and hardship. So everybody's just trying to make steps and trying to move forward, and it's hard to explain, but we're just trying to build something. Everybody wants to build something for themselves and their family, so I don't know.
I think because we've been oppressed for so long, just having like normal stuff, like a normal job, or not facing racism in your face, kind of.
So we're content. We're content with that
it.
level.
That's the right word there. A lot of Black people are just content now, just having a steady
being accepted,
job.
Being normal.
Being at the bottom of whatever ranking system in your workplace, as long as you have a job, as long as you can come home, you can.
Well, I was sorry to cut you to say that. Sometimes for some of those people, they've had it so hard. Once they get a little breather, they just don't want to even do nothing else.
Basically, yeah.
It's been such a challenge behind the scenes anyway. So by the time you get a chance to breathe, it's like, yeah, man, I'm good here. Whereas you could, there's way more to push, but
that's what I'm saying.
You're just exhausted. You don't even want to challenge yourself no more because you're so exhausted, or
you feel like you've come to a level of comfort. Okay, you've got a job that pays you such and such. You're comfortable. Yeah. So now the other stresses, say, of other Black people, it doesn't affect you. You're comfortable. Yeah. So like, I'm okay in my bubble now. You know what I mean? I've made it to where I'm comfortable. Whereas, like what you said, there's bare glass ceilings to smash because we're not. There's still change that need to be made, but because they're not necessarily affecting us, we're comfortable. So
why break it? Why change it? And the next thing as well, just because in terms of the struggle as well, probably the parents was in a struggle and they was on low wage. But even though they're doing better than their parents in terms of wages, the wage bracket for them is still low. But like I said, it's better than it was for them growing up. So they're comfortable staying in that, even though they could push way further as well. So it's just one of them. It's a hard fight. So for some people, they just feel like, yeah, I'm good enough here. So
one thing that
we're not change anything.
One thing that I think we're dealing with though is the mentality of it, because remember back in the day, we as Black people are seen as less than. So we're still dealing with the descendants of people who have that mentality. How was their mentality changed? Because that's something, I don't want to keep using them as an excuse or whatever, not, but in society, we're still dealing with the mentality of we're being less than, but it's only because we're in modern times, they have to kind of make it politically correct and not seem to be racist, even though it's still there. So that's one thing that we're constantly going to be dealing with. The mentality, it's ingrained in the DNA. So until the mentality of, let's just keep it real, until the mentality of the oppressor changes, we're going to keep experiencing oppression. It's just going to be done neatly, because if you check the currents, they don't like looking racist. Just like, for instance, with the royals, they don't like looking a certain way, so they have to kind of sprinkle sugar, excuse my French, but they have to sprinkle sugar on the shit. You get what I mean? To make it look a bit better. So that's just my 10 pence on it.
But what I feel as well, I do feel as there's a disconnect within the community, black community. There is a disconnect between the lower class and the upper class as well. Like, because I see that there's definitely people that are on celebrity status or, you know, high earning salary that do give back. But I feel like when you get to a certain tax bracket, you're not dealt with the same oppression and struggle as you are when you're in the low, when you're on the come up. I feel like, so that's why it's a key thing to try and build yourself up as much as possible, because I do see people that are high profile, they don't seem to complain or moan about certain things that people in the struggle go through.
You know what? Can I just chime in? Because I reckon sometimes you're right, you know, but sometimes I reckon they don't complain because they don't want that bag taken away from them. Yeah, they don't want to mess up the bag for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
So because they don't want to mess up the bag, it's easy to not rock the boat and speak on issues that they don't. Remember, they don't live with the issues because they're not at the struggle line. But it doesn't matter how much bread you got in this society, you're still gonna be N-word, you know, like what Jay-Z said. Don't matter what money you got, you're still the N-word, bro. You know what I mean? You're just a higher earning N-word, or better still, you're more likely to be able to be controlled because they know you want the bag. You know what I mean? So it's easy to tap dance for whoever because you want the bag in it.
And just on that as well, I think when you're, like, say, a high earning black person, you're still expendable. Whereas, like, for example, a white high earning person, they can have issues at work, they can, you know, have scandals, they can do this, they can
do MVP.
Yeah. Whereas a black person, they make one mistake and they're done. That's it. It's all the unconscious biasness, all the things where they used to think, oh yeah, this person's that, whatever, all that comes out. You see it in workplaces even today, like you go through all like the statistics on like disciplinaries and issues, and I mean, I couldn't say for sure, but I'm betting now that if you put those from black people next to white people, more black people have been like fired and sacked and gone away. Like you said, that's their money gone. So I could see why people would be like paranoid of losing their nice earnings.
Yeah, of course.
Like one mistake and you're done. And
you don't want to rock the boat. You're just trying to go unnoticed. You don't want to appear on the radar, because as soon as you're on the radar, people are looking at you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
But in regards to this inequality stuff, how we move beyond it, really and truly, I mean, we can talk or we can do all of that stuff. It needs to be, to me, the system needs to be dismantled and rebuilt with diversity. Because if you've just got one set of people, if you've just got, for instance, forget white people, if you've just got black people at the top running the system, it's going to be seen as unfair to the other races. If you've just got Asians at the top, it's going to seem, it doesn't matter who's at the top, if it's not diverse, it's going to seem unfair. You know what I mean? So there just needs to be dismantling of the systems and let the people rule their system, as opposed to a false democracy or dictatorship. Do you know what I mean? That's just what I reckon.
Yeah, I think so. And like we said before as well, education, understanding of our own history, starting with ourselves, really, because there's black people that don't know their own history as well.
It's true.
As you were saying, Peter, earlier, it's not taught that much in school. It's not passed down. It's not a thing that, you know, is spread across the year. It's just a little bit in 1 month, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So we start with ourselves, educate ourselves, and then push that education onto white people, Asian people, the rest of the country. So any kind of bias or any kind of lack of understanding of who we are is just gone and eradicated.
I reckon in regards to us as well, like what you said, just to touch on, the education if the rest of the world isn't properly educated as to what really happened and why everybody is where they are. Like, for instance, the effects of slavery. Not a lot of white people know the weight behind it. You know what I mean? They know probably the glamorized version of it, but if they knew the impacts and the ramifications that it still had to this day, maybe you could appeal to the conscience and, you know, the wider conscience of the majority, and things can get changed that way. But because the truths are all kept together, nobody knows the real impacts of what's really happened and how it's affected everybody.
Yeah. Inequality, man.
Mm-hmm. So, in regards to people, how people feel as well, like it goes back to the education, because like what most people, they don't know that they're racist, or they don't know that they're suppressing other people, because obviously they're just living at the privilege that naturally comes with them being the race or being associated or attached to the race that they are. You know what I mean? So a lot of their racism even becomes inherited, which then kind of stems back to privilege and the rest. Do you know what I mean? Because some of them don't know that they're coming from a family with a history of colonizers, and they don't know where they get their generational wealth from. Do you know what I mean? But their generational wealth has come off the back of a nation suffering and poverty. So conscience-wise, they don't know that. Some of them do, probably a lot of them do, but some of them don't as well. So they're naturally going to have a stereotype and a bias. You know what I mean? We're going to naturally be seen a certain way.
Yeah, unconscious bias, isn't it?
Basically, yeah.
But yeah, I forgot. I lost my train of thought. I was gonna say something. I lost my train of thought. But now,
yeah, it was good, man.
it was really
good conversation, man.
The thing is, it's like as with all of the topics that I've already previous ones, there's levels, and there's lots of different levels to the conversation. So it's extensive. You could have this conversation again.
Yeah, there's always many layers to it, and there's many layers to it.
You could break it down into individual parts and just sit here for hours with it.
Yeah, and because there's so many different avenues of time that we're permitted to kind of discuss it isn't really enough, because you sit down and you think a bit and you're like, hold on, you see that everything's connected, even all of the topics, they're all interconnected.
Yeah.
Well, now, man, I think we've covered pretty much the surface level of everything anyway. Like you said, we could be here all day, but I think we covered the surface level of everything in terms of equality. Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
We'll say we're wrapping up.
I reckon so.
I think so.
Close it off, Marv.
Yeah, thanks again, everyone. And interesting topic. Like you said, we could have gone on for hours, but you know, very important topic, and you know, I hope it comes across well and it gives people something to think about.
Yeah, most definitely seeds planted. I mean, I'm still thinking now, so.
Yeah. But now, man, good to see the fellas, them.
Yeah, man.
Have a good rest of the day and all that good stuff, man.
Blessings, everyone.
Salute, bros.
Yeah, bless.